There's dimming or shading down of the lines of division between churches, not because they all agree with each other, but because denominations are becoming weaker, because there's fewer people attending traditional churches. And so what we've got is a lot of churches out there that are struggling with, what do I do in this time, this virtual age in which we live, young people on social media, how do we do all these things? How does the church become the entity it's meant to be on the earth? And most of the structures that have been in place are not offering the answers to that. So the churches are kind of struggling out there. Thus arises the regional hub. What is a regional hub? Well, it is the sharing of the resources of the kingdom that have been invested in various churches so that it can benefit the whole group of churches within that region. So some of that might be the exchange of fivefold giftings. You might have apostolic people in some churches, prophetic people in another, heavily pastoral in another. And so there can be an exchange of some of those giftings through trainings, maybe even through people traveling back and forth, imparting what they have. We look forward to those kinds of things. There might be teams that are going out from churches one to another. Teams could be worship teams, ministry teams, teaching teams. We could see the power of God released in a greater number of churches when we see ourselves working together. Even if you think about the impact of worship these days, so worship, praise and worship, if you will, is a dynamic way of entering into the reality of heaven. Some churches seem to have it. Some are, struggling with that. What if we had worship teams go out and equip other churches? At least envision them to get what God wants them to have. I mean, if that was happening, think about the people that would be engaging with heaven on a more consistent basis. Even if they're having to listen to CDs and worship music that's bringing them into that reality, at least it's not just singing a song. It's worshiping the Lord. There might be exchange of practical things like conflict resolution. Unfortunately, churches are prone to conflict. What if we had a professional team in conflict resolution? How about something like a regional recording studio, where those who have been inspired with music, song, are able to go and record professionally in a studio. Maybe book writing seminars or clubs where we get together and we're exchanging ideas. I think about C.S. Lewis. He had these other guys that he met with called the Inklings, and they exchanged ideas, and they went and wrote books about that, and those books today are still being read. It's an amazing thing that came out of that, birthed out of that. Encouraging one another, releasing prophetic words or realities, sometimes speaking the alignment with heaven that will help a particular church come back into the place where they can begin to grow and thrive. I think there will be a restoration of collegiality. Churches, especially close to each other, have been more competitive than collegial. In other words, they see the other church. You might steal some of my members. You might get ahead of me. You might have something I don't have. And so the tendency, well, let me talk bad about that church so that I keep my people and they don't get any of them. I just think that's very unfortunate because we're damaging the church. Everybody's damaging the church. We tend to see each other as competitors. We are the same church, the same Jesus, the same heaven we'll be in. If we see a return of collegiality, it means that there will be churches, church leaders, pastors, and other leaders working together, saying, how can we make this work, not just in our own city, but our entire region? I think God will honor that, especially as we move into that area of being united in love. So church leaders, and even those who are not in the church, but they got a heart for the Lord and they want to build, It's like, there's a place for you. Come and join us, because regionally we see God doing this and we are doing it together. I think that's what the Lord is doing now through regional hubs, the building of collegiality. We're going to see regular gatherings where leaders are getting together and visioning one another, seeing what's happening. I believe revival is going to break out in some of these regions, and there'll be an opportunity to talk about how do we deal with all these people coming in? How do we disciple them effectively? And this exchange of revelation from the Lord, ideas, insights, and wisdom will allow us to grow and be healthy as never before in the church. And it won't be based on denominational lines or doctrinal differences. It'll be based on what God is doing in this time and what He is showing to the church.